It is Saturday night. It is the end of August. We are into Labor Day weekend. Welcome to a special edition of the Wise Guys Sports Show. And this is probably going to be unlike any of the other shows you've seen us do before. And it's also not the only time you're going to probably see us this weekend. Michael, we've got some good news, but unfortunately tonight we've got a lot of bad news.
Yeah, this is probably one of the worst hat tricks we will ever do. With everything that is going on, unfortunately, yes, we normally fill your night with mirth and stupidity. But tonight, to open the show, we have to go on a little bit of a serious tip. And it's not something we wanted to do. But unfortunately, as the video says, the three biggest topics, these are.
It's the three biggest topics in the world of sports from the last week. Get ready for the Wise Guys hat trick.
There's not going to be any goal horns played during tonight's hat trick. There's, at least for several topics. And unfortunately, we have to start here because it's the freshest story in everybody's mind. We will get to college football a little later on in this hour. But unfortunately, Mike, you and I had two production meetings this week. We had our typical Thursday morning production meeting, and then we had a breaking news one first thing Friday morning that really seemed to take a toll on both of us.
Yeah, and more you than me because of your love for the sport, but the untimely and horrifically tragic death of both Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau, who were killed Thursday night by a drunk driver in New Jersey, in their hometown to serve as groomsmen in their sister's wedding, which was, did it go on yesterday? I don't remember.
It was canceled.
Okay. In the sports world, the Gaudreau brothers both played college and professional hockey. Johnny, obviously a national champion at Boston College, who scored the winning goal his freshman year, was the player of the year his junior year. Drafted the Calgary. Was he senior year too?
Okay. Yeah, senior, junior, and senior. 2012 and 2013, Hockey East Player of the Year.
And then, of course, drafted by the Calgary Flames and was going into his third season with the Columbus Blue Jackets in the NHL. Matthew was played several years in the minors and was now a coach at the high school they went to.
Correct.
If I read correctly. Jim, I'm going to let you take it from here because what I know about Johnny, especially Johnny, didn't know much about his brother other than what I've read in the day or so since. But I'm going to let you take it from here since you are the guy and you speak very highly of him both on and off the ice.
Well, Johnny Gaudreau was 31. Matthew Gaudreau was 29. Both married. And Johnny, father of two kids. And I believe Matthew was expecting his first. Matthew and his wife were expecting their first.
His wife is due in December.
Yes. And the more recent photograph that's kind of come out was where Matthew was Johnny's best man and Katie was a bridesmaid at Johnny's wedding. Because Johnny was only married back in 2021 to his wife Katie. I'm sorry, his sister is Katie. I'm his wife. With everything that I'm reading, just the names and everything in the last 24 hours have been a blur. Johnny Gaudreau was drafted, ironically enough, in the fourth round of the 2011 NHL draft. He signed a 3-year entry-level deal. Scored a goal after his senior season came to a close at Boston College. Scored a goal in his first ever NHL game on his first ever NHL shift on and shot, which was the regular season finale for the Calgary Flames against the Vancouver Canucks. A lot of these entry level deals, they kind of consider them as two-way deals, meaning that he didn't have any college eligibility left, having played out, all of his seasons at BC. Was a Beanpot winner. We talked. He was a Hockey East 2-time Player of the Year. He scored a goal in the 2020 2012 national championship game for the Eagles. Johnny Gaudreau, it was a 3-year contract. It was a 3-year, two-way contract. Johnny Gaudreau never played a single minute in the minor leagues. Johnny Gaudreau was that good. Johnny Gaudreau was a finalist for the Calder Trophy the following his first full season in the NHL that following year. The two guys that were finalists with him, Mark Stone, then with Ottawa, and Andrei Barkov, who just won himself a cup as the captain of the Florida Panthers. That's how good that draft class was. Johnny Gaudreau plays 6 seasons with the Calgary Flames. He signs a massive contract extension with the Flames after his rookie season ends. And then kind of turns the hockey world, if Mike, you can remember, he kind of turned the hockey world on its ear in the summer of 2022, where it was one of the biggest free agent classes that we can ever remember. And there was a lot of talk. Was he going to give the Flames the hometown discount, knowing that they could essentially back up the Brinks truck for him after trading Matthew Tkachuk at the trade deadline just a few months prior? But instead decides not to re-sign with the Flames. And then it starts the ball rolling. Where's he going to sign? There's a lot of people that said that Johnny Gaudreau wanted to go home. The problem is the New Jersey Devils and the New York Rangers did not have the cap space to sign him. New Jersey was in the middle of their rebuild and actually had a lot of over-bloated expiring contracts that they could not unload. The Rangers were actually trying to buy their way back into the playoffs, going out and trying to essentially kind of Yankee their way into the playoffs, which they eventually did. And a lot of people thought that, and hence the jerseys behind me tonight, even though they're blurred, I've got Islanders jerseys up there, because there were a lot of people that thought that the New York Islanders, fresh off a trip to the East, a second consecutive trip to the Eastern Conference Finals, albeit in the bubble against the Tampa Bay Lightning, were going to be the front runners to sign Johnny Gaudreau. And out of absolutely nowhere, he signs a 7-year contract with the Columbus Blue Jackets, who had missed the playoffs by 19 points the previous season, which is the equivalent of 9.5 games. And he shuns the Islanders, who only finished 3 points better. And we think that this could be a turnaround with Columbus. Columbus had traded for Patrick Laine the previous season, and the thought of Johnny Gaudreau and Patrick Laine was going to be extremely scary, except Columbus didn't have any goaltending. Their front office had absolutely no idea really what they were doing outside of that. And the Blue Jackets failed to make the playoffs his first 2 years. And just last week, shipped Patrick Laine, still with, I want to say, a year or two left on that deal, to the Montreal Canadiens for draft picks. And now everyone was thinking, okay, this is going to be Johnny Gaudreau's kind of chance to shine, let him go. Although he and Laine played very well together. And also a second year under Adam Fantilli, who had a fantastic rookie season. Really, I think outside of Connor Bedard was the best rookie in the NHL last year. And unfortunately, Johnny Gaudreau has passed away at the age of 31.
Meredith is his wife's name, Jim. Johnny's wife. I looked that up while you were giving a very eloquent recap of what his career was. I will say this. The things I learned about him in the last couple of days, just reading about it, getting ready for tonight, as I've worked a lot of hours the last 2 days, he was one of the players that was excelling on both sides. Young family. They had a little one back in the beginning of the year. But he was well established in the NHL. And the outpouring has already started in Columbus. They mentioned it on the Ohio State game today. Nestler called the Buckeye game, and Nestler's got one of those voices that stick with you, and he had some lovely things to say about Johnny, as did the sideline reporter.
He was a very prominent figure in Columbus in his very short time there, and it's weird to think that we're saying 2 years and it's a very short time there. But in the age of sports, where guys sign these massive contracts, a lot of the times don't play them out. Gaudreau had easily turned himself into the face of the Columbus franchise, and just the I don't think I saw any of the other 31 teams that did not do some sort of tribute either on the homepage of their website or one of their social media profiles, namely their Instagram or Threads feed, as I've basically kind of moved myself completely off of Twitter in the last month and a half. And just the outpouring of support. The Guardians did an extended moment of silence tonight as Gaudreau, had he actually needed to go down for conditioning, would have been playing across the street at Quicken Loans Arena, because the Guardians work very closely with the Cavaliers. And Dan Gilbert, the owner of the Cavaliers, is also the owner of the Cleveland Monsters of the American Hockey League, who are the top developmental affiliate in the AHL for the Blue Jackets. Naturally, the Flames put out a very, very touching tribute. The Phillies did a fantastic tribute on their broadcast last night. And not to take away anything from Matthew, naturally Johnny's going to get a lot more run. Johnny was a 6-time All-Star. Johnny actually will finish his career with over 750 points. And let's also be honest, if Johnny would have played out the rest of that contract, there's no doubt in my mind that he could have averaged 50 points a season to get to that magical 1,000 point mark, which almost assuredly would get you into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I definitely can see a scenario where we're going to see multiple moments of silence, tributes, and everything during the start of the regular season. And I could probably see the Flames retiring his number 13 at some point.
I think Columbus will also retire his number. Jim, and because our platform is, we are open to speak our feelings and speak things into existence. Someone needs to take that motherfucker out, man. Just some of the things you heard about the person who did this. I mean, I knew people from Jersey were the spawn of fucking Satan, but this is ridiculous. Sorry, my back is killing me.
I'm not going to speak with as much vitriol, but let's talk about the other side of this equation now. The gentleman who struck them had reportedly had 5 to 6 drinks. The irony is that, and I actually have have this in my notes as I'm putting together a sports note. His name is Sean Higgins. He's 43. He was arrested on 2 counts of vehicular homicide while under the suspicion of drunk driving. His arraignment is set for September 5th after the holiday. But he was a decorated major in the United States Army, where he worked at a rehab center. And the irony is that where this occurred in Oldman's Township, New Jersey, that's a dry county.
I did not know that.
Meaning that Higgins obviously got plastered somewhere else and either was heading home or heading to somewhere and was trying to swerve around slower traffic and then ran up back of Johnny and Matthew, where they had sustained fatal injuries as a result.
When you called me Friday morning, my first thought was something worse going on with our second topic in this. Never saw this coming. This was out of left field. And obviously, I got no words, man. I have no words. I have anger because of why it took place. I have as much love as I can sending out to the families, because this is unspeakable. And there's some anger. There is some anger for this.
It's another senseless drunk driving thing. In this day and age, when we've got Uber, Lyft, and everything else, why someone's going to take 5 or 6 drinks and get behind the wheel of a vehicle? That's where my vitriol lies.
As mine.
He will see his day in court. He will face his charges. He will enact his sentencing accordingly. And there was, I believe, some sort of a GoFundMe set up for Matthew's family, which raised over $300,000. I would like to see. I will honestly see. I would be shocked if I did not see Columbus not so much pay out the remainder of the contract, because the contract is technically void. Because Johnny Gaudreau was slated to be paid $9.5 million over the next 4 years on that 5 years, I should say, on that contract. You would Meredith and the children will never be able to replace their father. A very touching tribute by her, where she said that he was perfect. That got me a little bit.
Yeah. Greenberg got me too.
Yes.
The video we talked, Mike Greenberg. Listen, right here, because Mike Greenberg's the only reason anyone should watch that network. He delivered that. It was
impromptu and off the cuff. I'm willing to bet less than half of what he read was on a teleprompter, because of how well he probably knew Johnny Gaudreau, because of the fact that they're all in that tri-state area. Greeny's from New York. Johnny spends a lot of time in that area, even though he's from North Jersey.
Yeah, and that's why they thought he was going to end up with the Islanders at some point in time. Basically his hometown team. Because why would you go to the Rangers? You know,
I mean, this was when the Rangers were signing Adam Fox, and they had, top tier draft picks to re-sign, and Henrik Lundqvist was hanging around for another year or two on a very large contract. You had Igor Shesterkin coming up that you had to think about signing as well. It would have made a lot more sense for him to go to the Islanders as opposed to play at home with Jersey, because the Islanders had just brought in Bo Horvat. They had Matt Barzal. They had a team that could have contended for a cup, but Columbus actually had the money to be able to afford him, and it was. I think that's what was more stunning, is that a player of his caliber signed with essentially a bottom dwelling team, even though they technically finished 10th in the conference out of 16 teams. Again, they finished nearly 10 games out of the playoffs.
Yeah, no, and from what I'm reading, he seemed to be the type of player who wanted to be a part of the rebuild, who wanted to be a part of building something. And Columbus is a hell of a place to do it. And again, I'm a little biased because I happen to love Columbus, but the town itself that gets behind its stars like that, Columbus is hurting too.
There's already a makeshift memorial outside Nationwide Arena.
Yeah, that's what I saw. The first one that I saw was someone got out of their car and put their stick there. Someone else put the 13 on the wall. And on what was supposed to be a happy day in Columbus with the start of the season and all the pageantry, which we'll get into later, it's a very rough one.
Training camp was supposed to break in about 2.5 weeks.
Oh, that's right. They start soon.
Yeah. And people also remember, not only are people going to remember how dynamic of a scorer Johnny Gaudreau was, but people also forget just how good he played the game and how properly he played the game. He was the 2017 Lady Byng winner for sportsmanship. as voted on by his peers.
See, and the Lady Bing is the big one. I mean, the Conn Smythe is obviously the playoff, the Hart Trophy being the MVP, the Vezina for the goalies. You win the Lady Bing, that's your peers saying that you are basically the man. So
I mean, it's not the Lester Pearson where the hockey writers and the players are voting on the MVP, but it's I want to say it's probably the one that you could put the most respect on, that you're playing the game the way it's meant to be played.
It's hockey's equivalent to the Walter Payton and the Roberto Clemente in football and the Roberto Clemente Award in baseball.
Yes.
Nothing. Hold on. I got to ask this question off the top. No credit for knowing all the trophies? Come on, man.
Well, I mean, you watched hockey growing up, so you know the trophies. I'm definitely going to give you credit for that.
Well, thank you.
Sorry. One unfortunate part that we're going to kind of end the segment on is now we have to talk about it from the business standpoint. This is $9.5 million coming off the books for the Blue Jackets. This is also Patrick Laine's contract being moved out. This now moves the Blue Jackets, who the face of their franchise is a 19-year-old rookie, to having $26.3 million in cap space, which is more than $6 million beyond the number 2 team in the league, with 3 weeks before the season, and all the free agents are basically signed where they need to go. This is going to be a horrifically awkward. I don't want to say it's going to be horrifically bad. I'm not going to say it's going to be the San Jose level of bad that last year was, where they actually can, where they were the odds-on favorite to land Macklin Celebrini number 1 overall in this June's draft. But this is a definite state of flux for a Blue Jackets franchise that, let's be honest, outside of their 2-year run where they upset Tampa in the playoffs in the first round and then got back to the playoffs the following year, has historically been, I don't want to say a laughing stock, but kind of an afterthought in the annals of the NHL over the last 25 years since they came into the league.
We've been talking about debuting a new segment, and I want to give the first question here.
Okay. We're gonna have a tag for this segment, but we're affectionately referring to it as That Dog Hunts or Knucking Futz.
Yes, and the fact that we switched the N and the F, we should get an applause for, to be honest with you, because the way we normally go, we just said it outright.
Later on tonight we might, but not for this segment.
No. Does Columbus save their cap room?
Hang on. We got breaking news. Hang on.
What's up?
49ers wide receiver Ricky Pearsall was shot during a robbery attempt, but is expected to be okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Suspect has been arrested. All right. We'll actually, if more details come out, we'll add that into the blast.
Yes, absolutely. Good read, by the way.
Thank you.
Does Columbus take their cap room and do a full organizational reset? Does it hunt, or am I crazy?
I think that dog hunts here, and they've changed GMs recently. Jarmo Kekalainen basically set that franchise back years with the job that with the roster that he put together before they shoved him out the door. I think Columbus had things trending in the right direction, but now you have one of the probably 30 best players in the league, arguably their team's best player, even if Laine would have stayed. Unfortunately, passing away in the prime of his career, even though his numbers in his first 2 years have not been the greatest, because Columbus has not really had a whole lot in the in the cupboard to be able to put around him to get those numbers back to where he was in Calgary. This was a year where I don't think Columbus was going to contend for a playoff spot, but they were certainly going to be able to inch a little bit closer I mean, let's be honest, the year that Columbus had, there was really nowhere else to go but up. I want to say that they finished dead last or near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Yes, it was dead last because I want to say Arizona, now Utah, and San Jose were the two worst teams in the league. Um, and because of the way that they restructured the draft lottery, the Jackets ended up picking fourth instead of third, and they've got a very good dynamic young rookie waiting in the wings. He's 6'4", 230 pounds, and he's got a shot like a cannon. They said. So it's going to be something where it's going to take a few years for Columbus to kind of get back to relevancy, but this is something where you got to kind of dedicate the year to Johnny and his family and Matthew. I could definitely see the Islanders putting a lot of dedication out there for Matthew, who spent a number of years in their organization with the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, their AHL affiliate. Um, so I will definitely see the tributes, between these two. But yeah, if you're Columbus, take that cap room, load up for next year, kind of write this year off, take at least one, if not two of those years and pay them out to the families. Um, I wouldn't actually have a problem if they took this year's salary and paid it completely out to Johnny's family, and then basically kind of deferred next year's salary already to Matthew's family, um, because that's still going to be money that's going to be they're that's going to be able to come off the books. They're not really going to be able to do anything with it right now, but this would be a really good opportunity for them to kind of hit the entire reset for the 2024-2025 season.
Yeah, and I thought that's where you were going to go with that. That's why I wanted to ask you, Ollie, because I agree with you. I think that dog hunts. I think a full, I almost said factory reset, franchise reset at this point in time, with Johnny's loss, with the cap space you have saved, there's not a whole lot of time to make moves. Get what you can, save the rest, and chalk this year up to let's start the rebuild. That, quite honestly, if they would have, even with trading Line, I think they were starting the rebuild anyway, but Johnny was going to be the centerpiece.
I agree. It's not. We haven't seen this in quite a while. We're an active player. If you were to equate this to a different sport, I mean, this would be. I don't know. Could you put it in the realm of like a
It's Thurman Munson.
Possibly, but Thurman Munson was not the best player on his team at the time and not a potential Hall of Famer down the road. I was going to use the example of like, would this be like Jose Ramirez passing away? No, he's an MVP candidate. Would it be Lindor? No, he's an MVP candidate. Would it be Joel Embiid? No, he's an MVP candidate, and they're a title contender.
You know what this is? This is David Wright. Obviously not the death portion of it, but if you think about it, starting in 2013 or 2012, really, he wasn't around, and then he was gone. Obviously, David is alive and well and doing fine in California, but if you think about it from a franchise standpoint, the face of your franchise is gone.
You know what? It just popped into my head. You know what this is? Fernandez with the Marlins.
Yes. Yes. Obviously, there's impairment involved. This wasn't on Johnny with the impairment, but yet, no, you're absolutely right. This is Jose Fernandez.
Well, we transition from an unfortunate, horrific tragedy, and I will definitely have more on this on the sports note.
I look forward to that, by the way.
Sometime tomorrow. Yes, the piece is half written already. I will be finishing it either sometime tonight or sometime tomorrow. But we transition from that to probably the greatest in our lifetime walking away, and unfortunately, it's a story that we've actually had to cover before. This time, it's a little bit more pertinent and certainly going to be permanent.
Jim Donovan has retired as the voice of the Cleveland Browns. Jim, and for the Browns, there's really two sets of history. There's the pre-Art Modell Benedict Arnold move, and then there's the post what we are in now. And Jim began calling games with the Browns in 1999 with their return. As you said in your comment on Facebook, and I'm going to give this to you again in just a moment, you worked with him when you were on journalism staff at Cleveland State. Could you move?
Yes.
Let me say this as a late in life Browns fan. There are very few broadcasters I will go out of my way to listen to. Howie Rose, Gary Cohen, Paul Keels, and Jim Donovan. And Jimmy calling a Browns game, he didn't call it as a journalist. He didn't call it as a sportscaster. Jim Donovan called Browns games as a fan.
As futile as this franchise has been realistically over the last 25 years, taking the last 5 years aside where they've actually been competitive again, he was basically the only reason that you did the turn down the TV and you dealt with the delay, or you figured out how to sync up, the audio from the radio, because it was better than listening to national guys crap all over him, because at least Jim would do it. The banner with him and Doug Deacon, who retired a couple of years ago, just the banner between them to keep it light and jovial, even when they were absolute trash, was the highlight of Sundays for a lot of miserable years.
Absolutely. Only one person could have painted the 0-16 season in a positive light, and that was Jim Donovan. I will say this. I hope, and I hope this is done and he is around for many, many more years.
I don't think he'll be calling. I mean, he will not call.
He won't call games. I'm just saying, in general, Jimmy's a great.
Unless he can kick this thing for good and they get it and they make a very deep run into the playoffs, because it would be the right thing to do.
Agreed. And if they ever get to the promised land, I can almost see him a la Kevin Costner in For Love of the Game, and to take the line that Vin Scully delivered so masterfully. He said, and this was about Costner's character, take his aching old arm and push the sun a little bit higher in the sky for one more day.
Yep.
And if they ever get there, if he could call it, that would mean more to Browns fans than I think just seeing them get there.
Because I think this is a little bit different from when the Cavs made their run, and it was Fred McLeod and it was John Michael during those playoff runs, because Joe Tate had been around the franchise so many years and just couldn't physically do it anymore. He would have actually stepped back in the booth for a game during those finals if he was able to. Jimmy's still in his mid-60s, but this is now going to be the third time he's had to kind of walk away for something like this.
Yeah, when this came out, because I'm starting to pay more attention to them this year, I remember thinking, all right, so some Sunday afternoons I'm going to have the Browns on, listen to Jimmy. I won't listen. Have they announced who's going to be the play-by-play guy yet?
No, but I'm hoping that. Well, let's talk about that, but let's actually take about a 2-minute break here, and I'd like to actually, I will give full attribution on this. If we get the copyright strike, we get the copyright strike, but it's definitely something that needs to be played, and this is the tribute video that the Browns put out on their Facebook page yesterday. So let's actually, Mike and I are going to kind of slide off to the side, and we'll run this here. We'll be back with you guys in about 2 minutes. We will still be off to the side here. Our mics will be muted, but let's just have this run.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Fawcett Stadium in Canton, Ohio, and the 1999 Hall of Fame game. The wait is over. Browns football is back underway.
45-40, run, William, run! 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown!
Steps, fires, has picked off! They got it! Is this how it feels? Is this how it feels to win? Count it down, everybody. The Browns are winners tonight. 35, 40, 45, 50. There goes Chubb. He's to the 30, 20, 10, 5. Touchdown. Chubb on the hub. A toss sweep near side. Here comes Chubb with a cutback. He's out to the 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Here he goes to the 50. Here goes Chubb. He's going to go. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown. Nick Chubb. He's got a hat trick. He's going for Landry down by the end zone. A tumbling catch for a touchdown. What a catch by Landry. He bobbles it, stumbles. He got hit. He got sacked. He got sacked. Peppers got him. He got him. Peppers got him. Pour a little pepper on it. It's Denzel Ward. 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown. The Browns will get their 11th win of the year. They'll go to 11-5, and they're going to the playoffs. And the only thing that's missing, all of you. That's it. The Browns are going to the playoffs. The postseason is back in Cleveland.
The only thing missing is all of you. Oh,
It's you can't still listen to that without getting a little choked up because that was outside of this past season, it was the season that Browns fans had been hoping for, praying for, and envisioning since 1994.
yeah. And if the last segment with the final call of last year's getting to the playoffs, look at Nathan's face. Listen, I was very, very unsure of Nathan Segura going into the booth with Jim when Doug retired. What a phenomenal job he did. But it was that scene right there that showed me Nathan Segura is a Cleveland kid who listened to Jim Donovan growing up and just lived out a dream by watching Jim Donovan get them to the playoffs.
And steps into the ring at various AIW wrestling shows.
That's right, he does.
Nathan Segura is 6'7" and can step over the top rope.
I was going to say, I thought he was gigantic.
He eliminated two guys at the Gauntlet for the Gold that we went to on my birthday.
That's right. Who was the guy that came in when Jim was sick that you liked so much?
There were several, and let's talk about it now. Last year, they ran Chris Rose for a couple of games, being from Cleveland, even though he had to step away from his MLB duties. They had Jeff Phelps, who's a legend in this town as well, although he's kind of stepped away from the Cavs in recent years on Bally Sports and Fox Sports, etc. I'm not sure if his contract wasn't renewed with Diamond, if he actually just kind of moved away. He doesn't travel with the team. He actually is more so in-house with his CBS sports radio gig here in Cleveland with Andy Baskin from News Channel 5. They do the lunch show, the 11 to 3 show, the 11 to 2, 11 to 3 show. And then they also had Paul Keels do a game, which was fantastic, but they will never be able to throw the kind of money at him that Ohio State is giving him.
Yeah, and he's basically got his dream job. I mean, Keels is a Buckeye through and through. And I'll tell you what.
And the other thing, though, is that Paul Keels is 66 years old. I want to say he's a year younger or older than Jimmy. He would not walk away for that because he'd be on borrowed time as well. The name, go ahead with your statement, and I will actually bring up the name that I want.
If they can't get someone permanently right away, Keels on a Buckeye bye week would be fun. But who's the name? Because I think I know who you're going to talk about. I just can't remember the guy's name.
He is currently on the NFL Network. He does preseason games for the Los Angeles Rams. He is not originally from Ohio, but he grew up a diehard Browns fan. Made the trip up when his family moved to Virginia, and that would be one Mr. Andrew Siciliano.
That's who I was thinking of.
Andrew Siciliano calls a fantastic game. But it would be a dream of his. He even said that this was a dream of his to call 2 games last year in Jimmy's absence. But I don't know. Number one, the Browns could definitely back up the truck to be able to get him away from the NFL Network. But would they really want to with the fact that they'd have to buy his contract out in addition to buy it, in addition to a new contract? I could see them definitely going with more of a makeshift kind of guest host, although I might want to see them go with somebody a little bit more permanent, even though we're 9 days away from the opener.
Yeah, I think they're going to do what they did last year when he was out. I think it's the only thing you can do this season.
The difference, however, though, is that last year you only had to fill for 7 or 8 games. You're going to have to fill for 17 games and potentially the postseason as well. Are they going to be able to have enough bodies to fill that, though?
I definitely understand the dilemma. I will say this: due respect to Nathan Zagura, to replace Jimmy, you've got to go big. And I think it's time to put Joe Thomas in the radio booth. I think
I don't know as a lead play-by-play, because he would be definitely more of a color guy. You need a journalist, like
if you're gonna bring in.
And Chris Rose is a lead journalist, but football is not his forte. And that's the only concern I'd have, because his background is baseball. But the thing is that when you're in broadcast school, it doesn't matter what they want you to call. They want you to call hockey. They want you to call girls tennis. They want you to call water polo. You call the game to the best of your ability and you research up. I just don't think that Chris Rose would be, even though he's a Cleveland guy, he bleeds Cleveland. He bleeds, let's kind of run through. He bleeds red, white, blue, wine, gold, brown, and orange.
Yes.
And scarlet and gray, begrudgingly, I have to say that. Because it's still, it's 2.5 hours away, but you know what I mean. He bleeds this town. He's from this town, but I don't know if he could actually be the lead announcer. He was serviceable, but I don't know if he has the chops enough to be able to be that number one guy. If he is, great. I will still listen either way. It is going to be so. The one thing I will say is this: I'm glad that Jimmy's walking away while he's able to, because remember the last few that and this was certainly before your time. We had Casey Coleman pass away during an offseason. We had Ned Chandler pass away during an offseason. Gibb Shanley was split between Browns and Indians games back then, and then Gibb Shanley stepped away and then kind of turned everything over to Ned Chandler on the Browns side. He's no longer with us. Mike Snyder, who would have been a very good call, but I don't even know if Mike Snyder's around, and Mike Snyder might even be older than Jim Donovan.
Yeah,
they're in a bit of a pickle right now, and especially with a season. Let's be honest. The quarterback play aside, this team's got it. You get through the first 4 games, and then you get Chubb, and then you get Nyheim Hines back off the PUP list with their injuries. You go 2-2 during their first 4 games, regardless of what their schedule is. The talent that's on this team and the talent that came back and the moves that they made, and as healthy as they're going to get, this could be a very special season for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, and special seasons for the Browns really needed Jimmy, and it's going to be rough. I would be okay with Chris Rose if he took over mid-season. Give him a few weeks to kind of get his feet under him, and then give him the job halfway through the year. But if Siciliano's available, he's the perfect choice to do this.
You heard some of you heard
I did.
one of the games. It's he was very, very good. He's also he's very much like Jimmy, where when there's a big play, he's got that childlike exuberance where he's screaming to the point where his voice cracked a couple of times live on the air.
Yes, that was funny. That was funny.
It was funny as hell, but it just shows you how big of a fan he is. It'd be like the equivalent of like LeBron coming home or Jerry Lawler coming home,
Or what the Mets have.
with how he
I have
rolls.
two,
Yeah.
and Gary Cullen. I have two Met fans calling games.
And Ron Darling, who spent so many years in that organization. Yeah.
Same thing with Hernandez. And even the two kids they have backing up Howie grew up Met fans.
He's not going to be the guy, but if they actually patchworked this year, I'm going to throw a name at you for at least 2 games.
Say Hammy.
Tom, what would you say to Tom Hamilton calling 2 home games this year after the Guardian season ends?
I would say I pray to God Nick Chubb breaks one.
I was going to say, because let's be honest, with the way that they've been playing as of late, the fact of their lead is down to under 3 games, he could be available the first week of October at this rate.
I pray Chubb breaks a long one because Hammy's call would be epic. Hey, what about a Mexican soccer announcer?
They simulcast those, but we've got to be able to understand him for the majority of the game, though. That's not meant with racial overtones or anything. I mean, that actually would be on the Browns Spanish broadcast. I mean, I've heard those a few times. There've been times where I've accidentally loaded up the wrong stream or the app put on the Spanish one by mistake when it was buffering. And some of that's entertaining. I just don't know what they're saying.
The Spanish baseball broadcasts are hysterical because I've done that too. I mean, anybody who's heard them call Bartolo's home run in Spanish, you're losing your mind anyway. But we got a little jovial on this one, and I think it was pretty fitting because Jimmy made Sundays happy, no matter what was going on. Dude, what's next? Because this is some bullshit.
Well, let's actually we've had 2 in my wheelhouse. Let's throw one into yours, and then we'll do a quick wrap up of kind of a grand slam here tonight. College football's back, Michael.
Hence the gear, Jim.
The summer.
It went the hell away. Yeah, and it was a very interesting week 1 with the games we have there. Georgia and Clemson, ugly. Well, not for me because all the ladies I work with are all Georgia fans, so that was actually pretty fun.
Was it Jim Ross bowling shoe ugly?
Almost. Very close. Very close. Speaking of, what the fuck happened to your boys?
Miami's just, I think, that good. Well, you think I was kidding last week when I said that they could be the team to beat in the ACC this year?
No, I didn't think you were kidding. I just didn't think Florida was that bad.
I don't think Florida was that bad, but I think Florida is showing exactly what they are. They're a middle-of-the-pack team that's going to get to a bowl. It'll be a Christmas week bowl or the week before Christmas. It's certainly not going to be a primetime bowl. It'll be like, a 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon type bowl because there's only so much you can save, at that point in terms of putting a team that's not worthy of being in a primetime game. You're not going to put a 7-5 Florida team on a New Year on a January 2nd bowl.
No. But going on to the next one,
Miami's defense was just that good,
and that's what you were saying is that's going to be the difference. Your defense is very, very good. Going to the next game on there, we have a 6-6 game at halftime. between A&M and Notre Dame.
I was
LSU,
I was
USC.
watching the Georgia Clemson game, and the announcers were actually saying that they don't expect this to be a shootout. They expect this to be knockdown, drag out, very, very low scoring defensive battle, several mistakes. It could be sloppy. Um, both teams opening their seasons.
Yeah.
And so far, that's exactly what we're getting.
Hey, Jim, Pearsall, was he the kid from Florida that made that catch last year?
Yes.
That's why I know that name. Sorry, I was trying to put two and two together from that.
I'm looking up the numbers of this game, this Notre Dame Texas A&M game. The quarterbacks: Notre Dame 11 of 19, 74 yards; A&M 7 of 17, 68 yards, 2 interceptions. The leading rushers are under 50 yards apiece right now. I mean, this is just and A&M's got and A&M's got 2 turnovers. Each team's only got 9 first downs, and Notre Dame's on the ball for 16 minutes of the half. Each team's got under 150 yards of total offense. This is just we'd have to go back and kind of watch this a little bit closer, but I think this could be I don't want to say it's 50-50 how good the defenses are, because these are 2 very good defenses, but I think this is more because Notre Dame had a lot of transfer protocol, especially at the skill positions. But I would hope that this would be like a 60-40 better defense than sloppy offense right now. But those numbers are leading me to believe that could it just be, both offenses don't know what they're doing so far this year.
Could be. I will want to watch the YouTube highlight package that will come out tomorrow at some point. We have our first anomaly of the college football season. Iowa scored 40 points.
I was almost going to say Vanderbilt being an 18-point underdog to Va Tech and winning in overtime for a game that they were up 17-0.
Yeah, no, huge. That was big. Iowa didn't score 40 points a fucking year.
Especially with Kirk Ferentz being suspended for the opener.
Hey, look, a Michigan player tied to a suspension. Look at that. This is about Kate McNamara. Sorry, can't leave it. We had a couple of good ones. As much as you hate them, Colorado did play a good game against a very good North Dakota State team. Winning that game,
but albeit Travis Hunter was very good, but it was against a 1AA team. So
that's won how many how many championships and beaten how many other good teams in the FBS in the last few years.
And also the fact that they actually, I mean, they've got enough talent, and if they were a large enough school, they could make the transition to D1 and certainly be in like a Sun Belt conference or a Mountain West or something like that, and be, I would say, relatively competitive. But it's still the fact that they're a 1AA school, and Colorado had to rally late in that game.
Agreed. Now, the only thing I will say about that is one, you can't just label this team as a typical 1AA school. This is not Fresno State going to the big house. This is not the Citadel playing fucking Alabama. Who's Alabama playing right now? As I know somebody who's at the game.
They won earlier.
They're winning 49-0 right now against
Western Kentucky.
Yeah, this isn't that. Not that team. That team was given teams in the FBS fits last year. So, again, that one, I don't put the same. But, yeah, a lot of these cupcake games, Ohio State had one today. Play of the game, by the way, Travion Henderson picked up a blitz and knocked a blitzer back 3 yards.
I'm not going to make the joke about, the fact that it was Akron. It was rubber, meth labs, whatever you want to call it. What Akron's known for. That from being from this area for a number of years.
Yep.
But
I will say this though. Akron's front six, because they play a 3-3 on the defensive front. They play 5 defensive backs. Akron's front six is fucking good, man.
They've got
NFL talent on there.
They are fast, but some of the other scores were going down here. Alabama up 49-0, about 6 minutes to go in the third. Ole Miss up 59-0 on Furman, 6 minutes to go in the third. K-State, 18th ranked K-State up 34-6. They've just gone to the fourth. Surprisingly, Oregon only up 14, just over 8 minutes left in the third quarter against Idaho. We've talked about Notre Dame and Texas A&M. Michigan up 13-3 on Fresno State in the opener for the defending champions, especially with all the controversy going on there. About 5.5 minutes left in the third. We've got number 21 Arizona, a 29-point favorite against New Mexico, kicking off at 10:30. Georgia blasts Clemson 34-3. Ohio State blasts Akron 52-6. Texas shuts out Colorado State 52-0. Penn State, after what seemed to be about a 4, 5, 7 hour,
delay.
34-12 over West Virginia in Morgantown. Tennessee 69-3 over Chattanooga. Oklahoma State 44-20 over South Dakota State, and Iowa shuts out Illinois State 40-0. And then if we go back to Thursday for a few more ranked games, NC State over Western Carolina 38-21, Kansas over Lindenwood 48-3, Utah 49-0 over Southern Utah, and my boys at Mizzou 51-0 over Murray State.
The first week is, except for the marquee games, it's just annoying. I'll be honest with you. And again, I loved watching today. I learned a lot about Will Howard today. You know who he reminds me of, Jim? He reminds me a little bit of Ben when he was at Miami. Big dude, tough to bring down. He can run a little bit. Something Ohio State quarterbacks haven't done for a few years. So it's going to be interesting. Lots of growing pains on that offense, especially with the skilled players being extremely young. I don't know if you saw this, but Jeremiah Smith, who was the number 1 overall recruit, the true freshman, is now 6 touchdowns behind Chris Carter for the most ever by a true freshman after one game.
I will say next week we've got a lot of really good games.
We do.
I mean, it's certainly a lot more competitive. I'm just kind of going right down the schedule here. Mizzou will host Buffalo. Mizzou currently ranked 11th. The big one next week is Texas against Michigan at the Big House. That's 4-9 as it stands right now.
And that's the Fox. Fox is going to be that's the big noon game of the week.
Right. As it stands now, Texas is a 4-point favorite in that game in the early line. Bowling Green heads to number 8 Penn State. Arkansas heads to number 17 Oklahoma State. Number 18 Kansas State goes on the road to Tulane. Looking for some of the other rankings because they don't let me sort by the top 25 because the new polls are not out until tomorrow. A&M currently ranked 20th, barring what happens today, will host McNeese State. Georgia will host Tennessee Tech. Notre Dame will host Northern Illinois. Utah will host Baylor next Saturday. We got Cyhawk next week. Iowa.
I say Cyhawks next week.
Iowa's already a 2.5-point favorite in the early line on that game. And Miami will host Florida A&M.
Tennessee, NC State.
Alabama will host South Florida.
Got a 15-24 in the Dukes Mayo Classic as Tennessee will play
Ohio State
road team.
Western Michigan.
Yeah, that's
will host Nichols. Yes, the big one in the nightcap will be Tennessee heading to Charlotte. As a matter of fact, that's a neutral site game, even though it's going to be in NC State's backyard. And that'll be the ABC game of the week.
As much as you can't stand it, a renewing of a rivalry as Nebraska hosts Colorado.
Yeah,
the Peacock Big Ten game of the week next week is that game. That will actually be on the air during that game.
Boise State will play at Oregon. That could be interesting. Although this
big
is not
upset,
Boise State.
Yeah, big upset alert game is Clemson hosting App State.
Potentially, especially after they got shelled today. But I think Dabo and Klubnik, I think they kind of get everything kind of turned around because Georgia just basically came out and said, "Yeah, this is still ours until somebody takes it away from us." They're still the premier
Agreed.
program in the country, regardless of and this will be the only shade that I throw at them, the $20 million roster that's in Columbus.
Nick Saban, did you hear what he said today?
Some of it.
Okay. So, first of all, I really find it hard to believe that the two coaches who I hated the most, Bill Belichick and Nick Saban, after they're off the sideline, are absolutely wonderful. Saban today said, you guys are talking about this $20 million roster. If you don't pay the right people, you're shit out of luck.
That I did see, yes.
You see McAfee almost get his ear blown off?
No, and that's why I will not watch that because I have quickly he has rubbed me the wrong way for I want to say the last time. I find him extremely annoying, and I will not be watching Game Day because of Pat McAfee.
I don't watch Game Day because of him. I and honestly, I only turn if I watch Game Day. I watch it for Coach. I do. I mean, we're coming to a point where we talk about Jim Donovan retiring for health reasons. We've only got so much more time to play Corso.
I will say though that in the last year or two, I understand that he's kind of like Dickie V. He's basically there for life. Lee Corso's 89 years old. I'm sorry, it might be kind of time to move. To
I agree.
let him do the
you know what?
let him do half the season and just kind of move him out. I'm sorry. It's getting a little. I don't want to say it's getting hard to watch, but it's getting a little uncomfortable. With
yes, if anything, when he can travel, have him on just for the pick section, so he can do the mascot. But yeah, outside of that, move Coach Saban into his chair, who, by the way, again, entertaining now that he's off the sideline. But I also find it very ironic that we're getting Alabama going above Mason Dixon. He's no longer the coach because they play Wisconsin in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's I won't watch the Fox show, whatever it's called, Big Saturday or whatever it is.
Big Noons kickoff, yeah.
Just because it's on Fox, because I definitely don't want to get bombarded every commercial break. I like when I put on that Penn State game for a little bit. Joel and Gus were on the call, and I must have seen 5 or 6 commercials during the weather delay in like a single. They kind of doubled up the commercial break because they didn't know what was going on, and because it was right out of halftime when the weather delay was. I must have seen 5 or 6 commercials for Fox News leading into the election. I'm trying to think these, you guys are an entertainment channel. I don't understand how this game is being broadcast right now because your network owes $780 million. I've got no problem watching Tim Brando on CBS at halftime, for their studio show.
No, and their studio show is really good too. I mean, this will be the first year I really pay attention to CBS's radio show for college football, as they were SEC for 30 some years.
Yep,
maybe 40.
And for my money, still the best coverage of any. It's still the same crew. It's just shifting the conferences. It's still the best coverage of any of the of the 4 major networks, I would think. And that's ABC, ESPN, CBS, Fox, and Peacock. And I mean,
NBC.
And we'll actually, and yeah, it's a Comcast essentially. And then you throw Turner in there. Turner's good, but I think Turner now is going to start, upping their game a little bit with the shift and everything. So it's going to be interesting to see what Turner's coverage looks like this year.
Yeah, and I will say this. I love Brad Nessler on the call, and that's who had the Buckeye game today. And it wasn't with Blackledge. It was the other guy. Who's the one with him?
It's not Gary Danielson anymore, is it?
It is Gary Danielson. So it's him and Danielson on the 3:30 game, which used to be the SEC game of the week with Vern Lundquist. It's now the Big Ten game of the week with Brad Nessler. I love Nessler. Nessler called that Sugar Bowl that we're 10 years removed from the Bucs' last championship.
Yeah, but also we got to remember that Brad Nessler was the voice of our childhood because he was the lead announcer on all the NCAA games the first time through.
Yeah, I know. I think that's why it hit me in the feels today that Nessler was on there.
Although, he's the lead guy. He took over as the lead guy for Vern Lundquist, but Nessler's only got a few more years. You could definitely tell his voice has aged a lot.
Yes, it absolutely has. It absolutely has. But they did great today. I have no complaints about it. Usually with the national coverage, I will have Paul Keels on here, and I'll have the game on the TV. I do that. Believe it or not, I'm starting to do that with Gus and Joel too, just because Gus. Whereas Jim Lachey is the ultimate homer, with their recent success, Gus Johnson's colors are starting to show too.
Yes. Gus is becoming he's getting to me personally, and I know I don't want to say you idolize the man. He's quickly approaching McAfee levels for me, and it's for all the wrong reasons. It's for the annoyance factor.
Yes. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think there's another announcer in college football when he gets excited is more entertaining than Gus Johnson. I mean, everybody knows you got barbecue back there and you didn't invite me, hurt my feelings. That catchphrase notwithstanding, when there's a big play and he's the one broadcasting it, you like to hear it. But yes, he's starting to become a little bit annoying as it goes. But Joel Klatt is still, I think it's him and Herbie for 1A as the analyst in the booth.
Now, for ESPN coverage for the marquee game of the entire weekend, more often than not, they had their lead team this weekend. I think is vastly underrated, but it's not going to be this way after this year. Joe Tessitore, Jesse Palmer, and Katie George. I think Joe Tessitore calls a very good game, but here's the thing. Joe Tessitore is signed on to become the lead announcer of Monday Night Raw when they move to Netflix in January.
Tessitore and Jesse Palmer aren't the marquee booth. It's Herbie and Chris Fowler.
They're typically the prime time, but because the fact that they had the prime time, they actually went with Tessitore and Palmer. But I think that they are because Sean McDonough, McElroy, and McGrath are the second ones, but McDonough does Monday night primarily.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. He was for a while, but it's and it's I mean, now we know it's Joe and Troy, and it has been. But I mean, bag on ESPN all you want. I mean, those are three really, really good pairings.
They're very good booths. I absolutely agree with you 100%. I bag on ESPN about it because they are not ever going to have the biggest game of the week. They're not. Notre Dame is going to quickly fly the coop because they have to deal with NBC, which they're going to end up in the Big Ten at some point in time because they're going to have to. You lost your access to LA. You don't have access in Chicago, and you don't have access to New York anymore.
Well, let's close this segment up here, and let me throw the question out to you. Dog hunts or knucking futts, Notre Dame will join either the Big Ten or the ACC within the next 2 years.
That dog hunts. They're going to have to. I think what you're going to see this year, Marcus Freeman has done a phenomenal job rebuilding that program. Brian Kelly did a good job. Marcus Freeman has brought some of the gravitas back to Notre Dame. Having said that,
which one hunts and which one's knucking futts?
I think them
heading to the Big Ten or the ACC.
I think they're a little of both. To steal a phrase from you, some of column A, some of column B. But I think it's knucking futts more with the Big Ten and dog hunts more with the ACC because they're already playing an ACC schedule.
Exactly.
So why not just join the conference?
For baseball, basketball, all other sports, they're basically affiliated. I want to say hockey and wrestling are the only sports that they're not in some way, shape, or form directly affiliated with the ACC.
It's not, and then they're Big Ten. But and by the way, a majority of their opponents on their schedule are ACC opponents.
Yes.
They just keep their USC, they keep their quote unquote non-conference game like this year against
Michigan
Texas,
State, yeah.
Michigan State, Michigan every now and again.
Air Force, yeah, the academies, yep.
Yep. But if you look at the rest of their schedule, it's an ACC schedule. So I think it's more
Florida State, Georgia Tech, yeah.
Exactly. It's more dog hunts for the ACC, knucking futs for the Big Ten, but it can go either way. Especially with the NBC connection, because the ACC is in bed with ESPN, ABC. If they want to keep their NBC connection, they're gonna have to go to the Big Ten.
Let's actually see what that contract looks like here. Let's everyone get our feet wet for a year or so and actually see what this does now. Because I gotta actually say, and I'm not gonna call this breaking news at all. I actually said it to my dad. I said it to you earlier today. Because he was already giving me shit about Florida getting blown out and Ohio State winning against the sister of the poor. That if this college football season shakes out the way that I think it is, and I'm not talking about a Buckeye national championship and it's got nothing to do with their $20 million roster. If this college football season shakes out the way that it does, and even going into next year, this might be the last year I follow college football in some sort of serious fashion, including with this show, because with all this alignment and the NIL money, college football has quickly turned itself into a semi-professional league, and I can't take it seriously at all.
I understand where you're coming from. Because
what they've actually done is they've actually turned it into free agency, and in turn, they're quickly. I'm going to have to see what it shakes out for the next calendar year. But my fear is that by them doing this and all the realignments, are they going to end up partially ruining college basketball for me? Are they going to ruin college baseball and softball? Are they going to ruin gymnastics that I watch on ESPN? Are they going to ruin any of the other sports with this alignment crap?
I understand your frustration. I'm frustrated too. I think the fact that on October 12th, I have to watch a conference game from Eugene, Oregon, it's bothersome to me. I will, however, say this, and this is just my opinion. Again, you and I differ on a lot of things. College basketball and college football have been semi-pro leagues for 50 years because there is no minor league system in the NFL, and there really is no minor league system in the NBA. You finish college, you go to the pros. It's not like baseball. It's not like hockey. It's not like basketball. It's not like, any of the other sports that go professional. There is some kind of minor league system. There is not one in those two leagues. So to say that they're turning college sports, those two, into semi-professional leagues, they've been that way for years. They're just finally paying them.
But that's what the transfer protocol was, and this is something we'll talk about through the course of this.
Absolutely.
Season.
Oh, absolutely. And as far as the transfer portal goes, yes, free agency is very. Do I like seeing the guys that got to Ohio State because they wanted to go there and play? Yes, I'm going to root on Julian Sayin next year when he wins the job, and Caleb Downs looked real good today, as did Quinshon Judkins. But it does bug me a little bit that it's not graduate transfers anymore, which is what Will Howard is, which is what Joe Burrow was when he went to LSU. Joe Burrow graduated college in 3 years, and he transferred, and he had 2 years eligibility left. So graduate transfers don't bother me. The guys who play for a year and then want to go make money somewhere, that bugs the shit out of me. So we got a long way to go.
Yeah.
Considering the championship game is the night before my birthday.
Right. And speaking of long way to go, we don't have very long to go in this segment before we actually head into halftime, but very quickly, Last weekend, we actually saw AEW's biggest show of the year, and we said goodbye to arguably one of the greatest big men we've ever seen.
Let's open with Sid first, and let's close the slam on a happy note. Sid Vicious, Psycho Sid,
Sid Justice,
Sid Justice. The Justice Will Be Served thing was always one of my favorites in old school WWF. The Sid Powerbomb was something to behold. And I will never forget WCW years ago when Brian Pillman got the hell beat out of him by Sid.
In the War Games.
And Giant
got bounced off his head.
And Giant Gonzalez said, "I don't like what happened to Brian Pillman." And Sid brought out the gurney.
Just Sid Udy passed away at 63 years old with a long bout with cancer, as reported by his son. Although there was a lot of friction with him and one of his sons, who was actually on Big Brother a few years ago, and wanted nothing to do with his dad during that broadcast. I think it came to light, but 4-time champion, won 2 in WCW, 2 in WWF, headlined 2 WrestleManias. Did not actually lost the championship during both of them, but headlined 2 WrestleManias against Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker.
Oh, see, I thought he was, and he had the feud with Hogan when he first came over too.
When he first came up, yeah, it's remember his official in-ring debut was the 91 Royal Rumble, where Flair won it with a tear in my eye.
That's right.
And it was Hogan it was Justice at that point dumping Hogan out while Hogan was trying to dump Flair, and then Hogan holding on to Justice's arm and Flair dumping him out while Hogan was pulling him from the floor, and then Hogan and Justice decide to feud. Quickly into a heel turn for him. And he didn't find success in the WWF until he came back the second time.
Yeah. He was definitely better the second time. Sid Vicious was one of my favorites in WCW. The second time he came back was Psycho Sid, right?
Yes. Him and Vader, we remember growing up with
That's
WCW.
right.
Him and Vader, the masters of the power bomb.
Yes.
Because he was the master and ruler of the world.
You're so good at that.
It's part of like why my teeth are so ground, is trying to impersonate Sid all those years. It's and then remember he had the same Lex Luger finger point. It was the L, and it was slight. The thumb was slightly cocked. 6'9", 325 from West Memphis, Arkansas. We all remember the curly blonde hair. We all remember the incredible physique that he had. I'm going to be I'm not going to say biased here, but I also think his most impressive work was the cup of coffee he had in ECW, where he would show up, powerbomb guys, throw them on a stretchers, hang a thing around their neck, said call 911, and wheel them to the back. And he would count those. He claimed he was undefeated in ECW because he would actually show up and powerbomb somebody in the middle of their match, basically ending their match. And he was managed by Judge Jeff Jones. I think he had a run-in with the Dudleys, and then and it never happened because he was holding them up for money.
A lot of those guys did that, especially holding Paul Heyman up for money.
I think probably it's certainly not my favorite Sid story, but it's the one I remember most, is the infamous fight with him and Arn Anderson where he stabbed Arn in the hand with scissors.
Yes. Just real quick, it's gone final in Chicago. The White Sox have fallen to 31-105.
It's within reach. To quote Marty, there's a gleam.
My uncle took my two aunts to the game last night because he lives out there. Because remember, I'm the only guy with an Uncle Tony from Chicago who's not Italian.
They've lost 9 in a row. They've lost 8 in a row.
And tomorrow's a good matchup. Crochet and Manaya tomorrow.
That could be fun, but
If
the Sox lose tomorrow and Monday, I want to say they'd be the first team in baseball history to have 3 double-digit losing streaks in the same year. I'd have to look that up, but I want to say that would be accurate.
It's either that or the 62 Mets. Which Met fans are not happy this shit's happening. I will let you know. We love that record. Because the Mets lost 120 games in 1962 and drew 3 million fans.
I mean, the Guardians are 4-6 in their last 10, and they're still 2.5 up because Kansas City's falling apart. Minnesota fell back a little bit, and yet the White Sox are still 46 games out of first.
Jesus Christ.
And were eliminated last week before we talked to Alex.
Yeah. All right, we'll do baseball in the next section. Let's talk about All Out, which I heard was awesome.
Fantastic from top to bottom. It was we didn't see as many championships change hands as we talked about with Alex, but we did see Mercedes Moné retained against Britt Baker. We saw Jamie Hayter make her long-anticipated 16-month return to the ring in the pre-show, where she actually went toe-to-toe with Saraya, according to the storyline, who had put her out of action, prior to All Out last year. And she had her debut, her in-ring return, I should say, against Harley Cameron, who's like paired up with Saraya right now. This past Wednesday on Dynamite, we saw Bryan Danielson win the AEW world title in one of the better world title bouts I've seen in a long time against Swerve Strickland.
And I love the music.
The final
countdown by Europe. I love it.
Which was his music in Ring of Honor.
Was it really?
Yes.
I see the Irish wrestler debuted.
Yeah, they were in the UK. That legendary Irish wrestler Rick O'Shea debuted during the casino gauntlet battle royal, which was very, very cool. It was 20 guys, and it wasn't like Royal Rumble style, and they could come out anytime they wanted. So it wouldn't be 30 seconds, 60 seconds. They could come out if like somebody came out and you wanted to wait 10 seconds to come out, you could as well. And it wasn't something where they had to get all 20 guys in the ring. The match could literally end at any time. The first 2 could come out, pin the guy in 10 seconds, and the match would be over. And none of these other guys would come out. Christian Cage wins the match, which means he gets essentially their version of a Money in the Bank contract that he can cash in for a world title shot anytime he wants. Which ironically enough is hilarious considering he had actually been through hell in a triple threat ladder match for the Trios champions about an hour before that.
That's right. They do trios there. That's how the Acclaimed and Mr. S got one belt.
Yep. We had Jack Perry.
I saw Max lost.
Yeah. We saw Jack Perry retain the TNT championship in a coffin match against Darby Allin, where he actually tried to pour gasoline on him after he put Darby Allin in a body bag and then threw him in the casket, closed the lid, and was about to set it on fire, and then the lights go out. And he might have retired earlier this year, but he's still gonna be part of the organization. I'm not going to scream it like Tony Schiavone because I do not want to wake up half the neighbors, but it was Sting.
When I read that, I was waiting to see your reaction on it because I know we did the big thing for Sting when he retired. But if Darby was in that kind of trouble, you knew who was coming to help him.
Yep. What else did we see? We actually saw trying to remember half the card now. From I thought that Mariah May beating Tony Storm #1 was the right call. It basically uh, establishes her, as the #1 in that company, deservedly so for the work that she's put in, because a lot of people forget how good she was in Stardom over in Japan for a lot of years. Although the funny thing is that as much as the guys were kind of catcalling and whistling Mariah May for how gorgeous she is and how much they love Tony Storm's gimmick, the biggest um, reaction during the entire match was the few times they put Mariah May's Stardom tag team partner Mina Shirakawa up on the video board. Because basically every wrestling fan who sees Mina Shirakawa wants to fall in love with Mina Shirakawa.
Oh, she's their version of Sunny.
Yes and no.
Well, I meant the every guy wants to fall in love with her type thing.
Yeah.
Are you showing pictures now?
I'm trying to pull one up here because I don't think you've seen. She's she's a star in Japan. Like, she's 36 and she's like a big star in Japan. And she's teamed with Mariah on a number of occasions.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, in that photo, one of them is 25, one is 36. You'd never be able to tell which one is which.
The one on the right's 36. Right?
I know Mariah is younger, but definitely she looks older in that picture just because of how youthful Mina, has been her entire career.
Exactly.
We had the Young Bucks retain the tag team titles in a three-way dance. And then they were confronted after the match by the Grizzled Young Veterans. We had my brother Adam and myself are thoroughly convinced that we like shit-eating, smiley Kazuchika Okada heel more than we ever would as a face. He goes up to hug Orange Cassidy because they were stablemates over in Japan, and he's facing hard camera, so he's hugging him, and all of a sudden you actually just see he's like, because he's aligned with the Elite, so he's aligned with the Bucks and Matt Jackson, and then he's hugging him, and you could tell all the color just come out of his face and everything, and I want to say he slammed a guy, and it almost looked like, I'm trying to remember, because he was trying to steal somebody's spot. I'm not sure if he was like trying to do a people's elbow, but he basically just kind of, threw a middle finger right in the guy, and the whole crowd just ate it up.
Well, certain guys are good as heels. I mean, as much as we love him, Roddy Piper was the perfect heel.
He was. And that's what's funny about Okada, is that his greatest work is over in Japan, but he's adapted to the American storytelling type style. He is still one of the best in the world in the ring, but you can definitely tell he's started to embrace the theatrics a lot more, that he's made the transition over to the US in the last year.
Yeah. Yeah, from everything I read, it was a great pay-per-view. Both promotions over in Europe, because I know today was the Bash in Berlin.
Yeah.
For the other guys. But what do you say we call halftime here, sir? We get a little refuel. And we hit the blast, and we actually have some happy topics for a little bit. How about that?
A little bit, yeah. Let's do it. We'll actually see you guys in a few minutes.
We'll be back. And we're back, sir.
At a decent time, nonetheless.
Well, we started early.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've got an excuse for going over 2.5 tonight if we wanted to.
We do. I mean, after the three burger we did last week.
The 3 burger where we weren't live streaming something.
Yeah, right. Speaking of, you saw I told you what time that's on Monday, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, I think that's when the broadcast starts. I don't think the main event happens until like an hour or two later.
We may have to come Monday night and just do a review of it.
Yeah.
Because they're coming home early. Because obviously Bobby has school on Tuesday. So we'll have to see where that lands. But
because I watched enough Netflix last night. I was up until 2 a.m. and watching it for all the wrong reasons.
Would you watch that new Indian movie where they actually have actual oral sex on screen or something?
No.
Okay.
I watched, you know how they've got the Untolds?
Yes.
They've also got another series that they've only done a couple of, and I want to say they might start doing them more often, called American Murder.
Oh, here you go. Another one with the fucking serial killers.
And the first one I watched just came out last week, and it was Lacey and Scott Peterson. And then the other one was the Welsh or Walsh family from a few years ago, where the guy killed his wife and then the 2 daughters after she came home from a trip at 2 a.m. in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
That one I don't remember as much, but I mean, I think that one was a little bit more. I think that one was a little bit better produced because it was just a 90-minute one, where the Lacey Peterson one was like 3 hours.
Dude, I can't do the real crime crap. Zach had me watch the thing about John Wayne Gacy, and I was like, I'm done.
Yep. I actually I watched that one, and then I think I watched the Ted Bundy one, and then also on top of it, it was the one with the actual tapes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw the one with the Bundy tapes, and then I actually saw the Netflix movie that they did that had Zac Efron in it, where he played Bundy, and it's like, makes you just sit. It doesn't so much like give you nightmares, but it definitely makes you sit back and think. It's like how somebody could maybe kind of get into that mindset. What causes that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Just while we were on our halftime, it is now 13-6 Notre Dame, end of the third. Texas A&M has the ball on the Notre Dame 47, 2nd and 4. That's really it. Mets win in Chicago. Brewers are hanging on by a thread in Cincinnati. The Diamondbacks and Dodgers, that game started off terribly for Arizona. As Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman all went bomb in the first inning to start the game.
And the Guardians had 2 hits tonight.
2 goddamn hits?
And it wasn't even against Paul Skeens because he's going tomorrow.
Oh, shit.
Hour and 45 in, our first soundbite, because it's actually now this is the more jovial section of the evening.
Well, now we can do things like this.
What in the wide world of sports is going on here?
So, Jim, what's in the blast tonight?
There's one soundbite, however, tonight that we will not play for obvious reasons.
Yes. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I knew what you were talking about.
Just wanted to make sure because we've got so many different ideas out there.
We do. So MLB Roundup. Not only did Ohtani and Duran make history, we have some history with the Metropolitans as well. But Ohtani, the fastest to 40-40. I mean, that's just insane. What did Duran do?
Duran became the first player in the history of baseball to go 40-30-20-10. And that's 40 doubles,
30 steals, 20
30
homers,
steals,
10
20
triples.
bombs, 10 triples.
That's impressive.
That's a first time in history, considering what? He wasn't he the guy that actually got suspended for the slur at a fan last week or a week before?
Yes.
I
He
mean,
dropped a different kind of F-bomb.
If there wasn't Aaron Judge playing in his division, and they made a run at the playoffs, I could see Jarren Duran getting some MVP love because he's top 10 in batting average too.
If there wasn't a Shohei Ohtani, I could see Francisco Lindor winning the National League MVP. You're talking a Gold Glove shortstop's going to go 35-35, driving 100 runs, finish top 5 in doubles, homers, RBIs, walks, runs scored. If Ohtani cools off and doesn't go 50-50, you could see Lindor he'll probably finish second. A lot of people are saying Marcell Ozuna. I say why. Lindor, when he got into the leadoff spot, turned this team around, and now guess what? Hi, Atlanta, we're 2 back. Meanwhile, Atlanta's got to play the Phillies, and we're getting fat against Chicago.
So, I mean, if you had to pick an AL Cy Young right now, Michael, let me throw 2 names out there. Which one hunts and which one's off their rocker? Emmanuel Clase, who's got 24 consecutive saves and broke the Guardians' save record at only 26 years old the other day, or Tarek Subel, who leads the American League actually leads all of baseball in ERA, wins, and also was the first pitcher to get to 200 strikeouts today.
Skubal wins the Cy Young. Clase will be the Mariano Rivera reliever of the year. Second time for him?
I want to say, yeah, even though he's trailing Ryan Helsley of my Cardinals, who's got 42. But the difference is, the Cardinals are going backwards and the Guardians are still trying to cling to leading the division. They're almost assuredly getting to the playoffs, and they're going to get a lot more opportunities, for him to extend that record.
Yes. I would give it to Skubal just because he has done what a Cy Young Award winner does. I mean, he's been the stopper. He's been the ace since day one. I give it to him. It's a close vote, but I go Skubal there.
Isn't that you would know more about this than me? Wouldn't if he were to hold on to all 3 of those ERA, wins, and strikeouts?
That's the Triple Crown.
I was just going to ask if there was a different factor in there, because I can't think. I know it happened recently. I'm trying to remember who it was that did the pitching Triple Crown.
Wasn't DeGrom. I think Scherzer did it back in 15 or 16. Verlander did it in 22.
I know Kershaw did it.
Kershaw did it once. Dwight Gooden did it once. Johan Santana did it once.
It says Jake Peavy.
Peavy did it when he was in San Diego.
Peter Martinez did it.
Pedro in 99 and 2000 was disgustingly good.
I actually pulled it up here for pitchers who have won the Triple Crown, at least that we would know. And it's not telling me how many times they won it or when. Verlander, Kershaw, Doc, Grover Alexander, Walter Johnson, Jake Peavy, Christy Mathewson, Cy Young, Johan, Bob Feller, Lefty Gomez, Peter, Clemens, Koufax, Big Unit, Hal Newhouser, Lefty Grove, Steve Carlton, Bucky Walters, and then and Dazzy Vance and then a lot of guys from, when they were actually still sitting for oil paintings for their baseball cards, and I actually mean that in the most sincere way possible. I'm looking at their pictures, and they're not photographs, they're paintings.
Seaver didn't do it in 69?
Not from what this says. It just gave me a list. Bieber did it, 2020.
That's right.
In the shortened season. He only had 8 wins, but he had a 1.63 ERA and still 122 strikeouts in a season that was what, only 50 games?
60.
Verlander in 2011, Kershaw 2011, PV 07, Santana 06, Big Unit 2002, Peter Martinez 99, Clemens in 98 and 97, Gooden 85, Carlton 72. So you had to go 13 years between them. Koufax 66, 65, and 63. Hal Neuheiser 45. Rocket Robert 1940. Bucky Walters 1939. Lefty Grove 37, 34, 31, and 30. And Walter Johnson in 1924. Dazzy Vance 1924. And then Walter Johnson again in 1918. There's a couple of other names in there. Christy Mathewson, Walter Johnson again, Christy Mathewson again, Cy Young, and a bunch of names that we would have to go on to Baseball Reference to try and actually pull up what their numbers were.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think who could have won. Seaver won 25 games. I probably didn't have the strikeout numbers. Okay, he struck over 200, but he probably didn't have the numbers. Yeah, Doc. I remember when Doc did. Doc was 24-4 with a 1.63 and 267 strikeouts.
You're close. 85 Mets, 24 wins, 153 ERA, 268.
It was 276 and 84 when he broke Herb Score's Major League rookie record, which, by the way, no one has touched. It's still Dwight Gooden, and no one will touch it.
What number was that?
276. That was what he did his rookie year.
Okay, yeah, for rookie, because I'm actually looking at some of these other numbers. Koufax in 65 at 382 strikeouts.
Yeah. Stupid numbers.
Yeah. It's like some of these, most of the rest, naturally, Pedro and Randy are getting over 300 on this list. Carlton had 310, but then like in the 60s where guys were, throwing every 3 days or something like that, and they were pitching 9, 10, 11 innings a night if they had to, we're never going to see 300 again. We'll probably not see 3,000 strikeouts in our lifetime anytime
that
soon.
We might see. I think if he gets healthy and stays there, I think a guy like Spencer Strider can do it. But with the strikeout numbers guys can put up, I think they can do that again. To expand on something you said with the list, the year Carlton did it, that's the year he won 27 games and the Phillies only won 54. Think about that, or 56. Think about that.
I walked into the building. I got home the other day and I was like unloading stuff out of my car, and some guy's walking in, definitely younger guy. Couldn't have been any more than 30, 32. He's walking in with his young son. He's got a Mike Schmidt jersey on. I could definitely tell he's doing it because it's either Philly or the fashion or something like that. And I'm like, I just looked and I said, that's an awesome jersey. It was all stitched and everything. I said, you have no idea, because I'm older than you. You have no idea just how good he was. He was easily the greatest third baseman of my lifetime.
Yes.
And it wasn't even close.
No. I mean, the top 5 in our lifetime: Schmidt, Chipper, Wright,
scandal aside, we might, Aroyd might get honorable mention. Hosey's not there yet, but he's getting there.
He is. If he wasn't a druggie, I'd say Ken Caminiti. Excuse me. So yeah, with what Otani is doing, what Durant is doing, amazing numbers. As I mentioned, Lindor is going to go 35 and 35. He'll be the first shortstop to do that since A-Rod went 40-40. What else? Alonso passed Piazza on the Mets all-time list 2 nights ago.
Ellie's got 60 bags.
Jeez.
He's 18 ahead of Otani. He's slowing down a little bit. I doubt he's going to get to 80 like we predicted a few weeks ago.
Depends what kind of month he has in September.
I mean, he could, 70 still within reach. He only needs 9. He could probably do that in a week, knowing him.
Yeah. Considering he can steal all 3 bags at any time. Let's talk about Atlanta for a second. And I'll say this. With the injuries they have sustained, they are playing very well. Chris Sale is going to run away and hide with the NL Cy Young.
I mean, they lost today, but I mean, that broke what was the longest winning streak in baseball in the last couple of weeks. I want to say it was at 6. Just shows you how tight everything's getting, that nobody's like right now. The Cubs and the Brewers have won 5 in a row. They are right now. That is the longest win streak in baseball.
Yeah, no, they're playing out of this world. As far as what they're doing, I will still say this. They are the most suspect of the teams that are currently in playoff contention. Max Fried is 8-8. Chris, what?
The most suspect of teams in playoff contention would actually be the team that plays 10 minutes up the road from me.
I disagree.
They're the streakiest, and that's for sure. And you never know which end's going to show up.
That's true.
They got 2 hit by the worst team in the NL Central today.
Cincinnati 2 hit them?
Pittsburgh's in last place right now, technically.
Oh, okay. I thought Cincinnati was. Yeah, but who pitched for Pittsburgh?
Where'd it go? Ortiz.
Yeah, that could be tough. I think they've got the best shot to win that division because of how they're made up, though. I think the Guardians still win the division. I think Stephen Vogt still gets to the postseason in his rookie season as a manager.
I think he's almost assured to get to the postseason, but I don't know. I mean, I know that their schedule lines up, but they've played dramatically down to below average competition the last 2 months.
Yeah, that's rough. Just taking a look at the rest of the Mets schedule going forward.
Now that's the other thing is that as great as the Braves have been playing the last 2 weeks, you guys have won 3 in a row, and you're staying with them step for step. You're 2 back of them. Dog hunts knucking futz. Of the division leaders right now, Yankees are up a game on Baltimore. Cleveland's up 2.5 on Kansas City. Seattle's 4.5 behind Houston. Philly's up 6 on the Braves and 8 on you. The Dodgers are up 5 on Arizona. Milwaukee's starting to put some distance because they're now 10 up on the Cubs. For any of those teams that are 3 games or more, so you take the Yankees, Orioles, and you take the Guardians, Royals, and Twins out of that equation. So we're talking Houston, Seattle, Philly with the Braves or the Mets, and then the Dodgers and Diamondbacks. Who's most likely to get chased down?
The Dodgers. Philly's too good. And let me say this as I move to sit up again because my back is starting to tighten. To quote Pedro Martinez, the Phillies are the Braves' daddy. They've proven it the last 2 Octobers, and they're proving it again this year. So the only thing the Mets have going for them is I don't think they see the Phillies again. Let me check that. Nope, they do. The 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd of September, but the 13th, 14th, and 15th as well. Mets have 7 games against the Phillies left. They can make some hay, but at Philadelphia's running and hiding. They're done.
Because you look at their schedule, Toronto is not going to make the playoffs. Miami is not going to make the playoffs. Tampa's not going to make the playoffs. 3 games in Milwaukee. I mean, that's a rough 7-game stretch at Milwaukee and then in Belmont, for you guys. But, and then finish up hosting Chicago at Washington. I mean, more than half of realistically, the 7 games against you guys and then Milwaukee, nobody else is really in playoff contention on that. Philly has definitely got the potential because there's now a report that actually came out that said even though his elbow's been sore, the same one that had the operation, Bryce Harper said, come October, he should be 100%.
Do you see what happened today?
And that's going to get scary. Well, Zach Wheeler getting his 100th win or something?
No. Did you see the slide by Bryce Harper?
No.
The caption is crazy fight in Philadelphia. Whit Merrifield's playing second base for Atlanta. Of course, Merrifield started the year with Philadelphia. Harper goes to slide in a second on a double, and he gets his front foot caught underneath him, and he falls onto the bag. Merrifield goes over to Philly's third base coach and starts making fun of Harper to his face. Harper does one of these to Merrifield, slaps the hat off his head.
Was he trying to be Eric Sim?
I don't know what he was trying to be, but it was hilarious.
Did you watch today's Momentum video?
I did not.
It was Marika, Tosh, Kevin's back, and and Sim, and they had to make homemade baseball gloves, and it was different challenges, and then you could either take what you wanted, and it was things under a tarp. So like the first thing was like leather, duct tape, concrete, and I can't remember what the fourth one was. So
please tell me Sim got the concrete.
No. He actually, that's just it. Is that Sim won the challenge, but he gave Kevin the concrete. So you can either take what you want or give something else that was available to somebody else if you wanted to screw them.
That's funny.
Marika won. And she made a duct tape glove that had sponges and caught 104 miles an hour. So she now has the record for the best homemade glove that actually caught something over 100 miles an hour in the channel's history.
That's crazy. Just to piggyback on what you're saying about Philly's schedule, this is the Mets schedule. They got one more against Chicago tomorrow in Chicago. Then it's home for the Red Sox, home for Cincinnati, 2 Toronto, 2 Philly, home for the Nationals, home for the Phillies, 2 Atlanta, 2 Milwaukee to finish the year. So the Mets schedule isn't a cakewalk, but you can see where they can make some hay with 3, 6, 9 more, 10 more games in a row against teams that are not going to go anywhere near the playoffs. In the Red Sox, Cincinnati, and Toronto, you got a 3-game respite against the Phillies in Philadelphia, and then you welcome the Nationals in. And then you got the Phillies for 4, who you have played very well against at home. So the Mets can make some hay. My personal favorite would be if they come to Atlanta the 24th, 25th, and 26th and beat the piss out of the Braves for 3 days.
Whereas with the Guardians, after tomorrow, they are in Kansas City for 3, then go to Chavez Ravine for 3 against the Dodgers. So they got a 9-game road trip, and then they finish that road trip on the south side. Then they come home for 4 against Tampa, 4 against Minnesota, 3 at St. Louis, and then finish the season 2 against Cincinnati, and then 3 against Houston. That does not line up very well for them.
They should take care of business on the South Side. I think they take care of business in Kansas City. Where they're going to have the problem is that West Coast trip. Who else they got on that West Coast trip?
It's at Kansas City, at LA, at Chicago. That's the 9-game roadie. But Kansas City came in here a couple of weeks ago and beat the shit out of them 3 out of 4.
Yeah. I tell you what, we're going to have some interesting episodes in September with these races all coming down to the wire.
Yep.
What's next? Oh, we see Curry's extended. Whatever. He wasn't going anywhere. All the BS. Oh, he's going to go to the Lakers. No, he's going to be one of those guys that plays his entire career in one place, and he belongs there.
$62 million for the 1 year. Is now he going to start signing for 1-year deals like LeBron is? Because this was only a 1-year deal. This wasn't like LeBron's signing for 2 with the player option for the second, where he could opt out. This is just a 1-year thing.
Yeah, but remember that 1 year is 2026. So he's finishing out the current contract. That's probably his final deal. He's not LeBron. He's not going to play into his 40s. He's not, number one, he's not as durable. He plays a brand of the game that unless you are elitely conditioned, you can't keep up for much longer. If I had to guess, he added that year at the end of his contract for his final. That'll be his final season.
He'd be 36, I want to say.
38.
Okay, yeah. He's got his 4 titles. He's got, or 3. He's got his gold medal.
No, he's got 4.
So
15, 17, 18, and then the one against
Boston.
So yeah, he's got 4.
Okay, so he's got 4, and he's got his gold medal. He's basically done everything he wanted to do.
And he's going to go down as the greatest shooter of all time. Still a douchebag.
But when you see him on the court, yeah. When you see him off the court, you love the guy. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
what he did in Paris and everything that you saw about him, off the court in Paris, I've got a whole new level of respect for the guy.
I do too. I'm finding it a lot of the guys I hated at one point in time, I'm starting to really like.
Kevin Durant is still a prick.
He's a piece of fucking shit. Speaking of guys that we like or don't like, did you see who the first guest on this year's season of New Heights was?
No.
It wasn't Taylor. It was Adam Sandler. Yes, folks. Travis Kelce is in Happy Gilmore too. And the rumor is I didn't watch the whole episode or listen to it. He is Happy Jr.
Can we cut him and put more Paige Spiranak in there?
I hope so. I think Tiger as Chubbs Jr. is going to be hilarious too.
He's a piece of shit too.
Well, I understand. I'm not saying he's not. I'm merely saying I believe the character he will portray will be funny.
Who was the other one? I got to go back and now watch our Off the Rails.
From what?
When we talked about the cast rumor. Who was the other girl that we were drooling over? Sydney Sweeney.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
When does filming end?
I don't know. I don't think filming has started.
When does filming start? Because I need this movie.
Yeah, I think after the NFL season, because Kelsey's got a pretty big part in it. But they did a video of him doing the Happy Gilmore golf swing, and he annihilated one.
Does not.
And you hear Patrick Mahomes in the background go, "God, that's gone."
Honestly, does not surprise me in the least, and I have to see this movie, not so much for the what we talked about when we did it a couple of months ago, Sydney Sweeney and Paige Spiranak being on screen at the same time, because then, I enjoy my life. I just don't want to get, sucked into a black hole vortex at the time, like every other red-blooded male would be. But it's, you know, we've seen how good some of the sequels have been for movies that were redone in recent years. We saw how good Top Gun was. We saw how good Michael Keaton was putting the Batman suit on.
Oh,
This is either going to be great or this is going to be the worst thing we've ever seen, but I'm all here for it either way.
really want to see Beetlejuice.
They're going to be
Saw a meme today
about extra security in Colorado.
Joe Exotic is Beetlejuice when he was alive.
Now you're going to make me want to go back and watch Uno, because that was Tyler Breeze's alter ego during those shows, was Breeze Exacte.
Oh my God.
Because they were locked down, so he grew out the horrific Joe Exotic Hogan mustache.
Oh my God.
had the exotic shirt on, and everything.
Can I tell you something funny that people don't believe? I have not watched a single second of Tiger King.
Me either.
Oh, good. At least I don't feel alone. The only thing I'm looking forward to, movie-wise, is December, when Deadpool is on Disney Plus.
Okay.
Fully uncut. Jim, there is a scene where Jackman, all jacked up, comes walking out without a shirt on.
Uncut and Jack.
Yeah. Hugh Jackman comes out all, Wolverined up with no shirt on, and everybody's staring at his chest. And he goes, "Put your sweaty tits away, you, what is it, you something slut." I can't.
Did they pull a Jane, you ignorant slut on there?
No, they didn't do it January. My favorite is still when he's talking to the nice pull version, which is basically supposed to be Ryan Reynolds' twin brother, like the interview he did. And he goes, "Oh, I can," he says, "Do you want original?" He's talking to the dog. He says, "Do you want original recipe or Van Milder here?" "Oh, I can gently tap the fourth wall." He looks into the camera and goes, "The proposal." He looks back and you hear original Deadpool go, "What the fuck was that? Bitch, you think that's what I do?" It's the sassiest bitch. Come on. I'm telling you, you would enjoy that film just because he's Ryan Reynolds. But
it's going to ruin Van Wilder for me now.
I don't think anything can until you realize that was the original movie option out of Burt Kreischer's life. And he's never seen it and refuses to watch it unless Ryan watches it with him.
There's what I've read. Funny that you mentioned that. One of the movies I want to watch, I kind of don't. Just came out recently. Was called Long Legs with Nicolas Cage.
Oh, when he sings "Happy Birthday" or something fucking crazy like that.
Like that. It's he's a serial killer, and the actress who plays his mom, and I already kind of know how the movie goes. Her name's Alicia Witt. She's like the first Hallmark actress I really started following, but she's a fantastic singer and she's a classically trained pianist, and she will not watch the movie because of her part in it and how superb she was afterwards.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he got all kinds of acclaim for it too.
Yeah, I think tomorrow the Ted Lasso seal gets broken. But James, we're 216 in. There's only one thing left to do, sir.
Win the whole
Fucking thing.
That's what she said. Would you shut up? You just pushed the button already? No! God! No! God, please, no! 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 No!
It's the YZ Translator on the Wise Guys Sports Show.
I'm forever unclaimed.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is this week's version of the YZ Translator, the favorite segment of everyone who involved, because it is the final segment of the show. As always, we look back on some of the classics that have come out of the YZ Translator, those being the Hall of Famer, my nominee for the Hall of Fame this year, of Sonika Wallace, the initial YZ Translator. I went back and watched a few today, just because I was at work for, almost 12 hours. And I happened to come across a few different, very good ones. Last week was another epic one where we compared the former $15 an hour intern for the Arizona Diamondbacks, the now interim manager of the Azerbaijan White Sox, Grady Sizemore, to a fucking donkey. Jim, what did you call Stephen Vogt, by the way? I can't remember.
I quoted Billy Hoyle.
Ah, yes. The mustard's off the hot dog. Yeah.
You big corn-fed mule, you.
Yeah. And then I forgot Marty Schottenheimer last week, which I thought Jim was going to reach through the computer and beat the piss out of me.
That's actually, I almost thought about putting that in the description. Pay very close attention to Jim's reaction during this name.
Yes. But I will say this. I don't think I'm wrong once I added Marty to that.
It offended me that it took you that long to remember Marty.
And what bothers me is I call him and Barry the best GM coach combination since Ernie Accorsi and Marty Schottenheimer all the time.
Right.
It was a brain fart, and I apologize. So, James, if you would please reveal this week's. Wait, which Miami?
Dolphins. Or if he played hockey in Chicago. Is it getting there yet?
It got there before then. I just didn't know where else you were going to go. She had another good one, by the way. She was talking to Whitney Cummings, and Whitney said, I need a catchphrase. Whitney needs a catchphrase. She said, I say this to my friend all the time. The hot one that you like better from the video. What's good for the whole isn't always good for the soul. The look on Whitney Cummings' face only said this.
You stop moving. There.
So, as normal, I will give the first name into the YZ Translator this week. You know, Jim, when I see you with the microphone like that, I think a half-baked. Fuck you. Fuck you. You're cool.
Half-baked or Coming to America.
Who's next?
Every time I bring up this motherfucker's got to bring up Rocky Marciano. Joe Louis, 175 years old. Fuck you, and fuck you. Who's that?
No. The fact that Eddie Murphy plays the Jew is my favorite part of that whole scene.
fact that Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall played half the damn movie.
They did. So, James, your first name in this week's Wisey Translator is Clemson coach Dabo Swinney.
We ain't in Kansas anymore. Now let's actually see what happens when you got to recruit and you actually have to fill holes because you've got the quarterback, you don't have much else. Cade Klubnik was completely outmatched today because Cade Klubnik has nothing.
Miami's going to walk away with the ACC. What do you got for me?
On a similar note, Michael, your first name in the Wisey Translator, it might be a little bit of a sore subject for what you had to watch today, but I'd like to get your opinion. Georgia quarterback Carson Beck.
Hand him the trophy now. The only person who could take the trophy from Carson Beck is Travis Hunter. What Travis Hunter did the other night against North Dakota State was off the charts. He had like 4 or 5 tackles, one of them for loss. He caught 3 touchdown passes when he was playing offense. The guy is insane. And I don't care what teams need quarterbacks. Travis Hunter should be the first overall pick in the draft.
If he's not number one, I mean, because what we said, a lot of people last year were thinking it shouldn't have been Caleb. There were other guys that, I mean, we knew that that's where Chicago was going, but I think athletically he's got to be the number one. But let's actually see how the draft shakes out. He may not be able to go number one because other teams might need to fill quarterbacks, and this I think this could be between Beck, between Dylan Gabriel at Oregon, who I think is let's actually see what he does, starting next week after all these fluff games, once they start getting going here, and especially what they do against the Buckeyes here in a few weeks. I think that game could make or break Dylan Gabriel because I think right now Dylan Gabriel is outside of me. I mean, you've also got to throw Jalen Milroe into that equation at Alabama, regardless of what you say about Alabama. He's got the most talented roster there. He's probably got more talent than when Bryce was there, and now we actually see what Bryce is doing when he doesn't have anything. Milroe's also got the athleticism and the ability, and I think he's better than Bryce was. But Carson Beck, you're right. I got to say right now, if it's not Travis Hunter, Carson Beck can put a very, very big axe blade through the door and said, here's Carson.
What we're going to want to see with Carson Beck. Now, first of all, Clemson is a good team. But Carson Beck lost Ladd McConkey. He lost Brock Bowers. Let's see how when he gets into the teeth of the SEC schedule, how he performs against teams that can play with him. I'm going to say this right now. I think Clemson at number 10 was an overrated pick, or 14, wherever the hell they were.
14.
Absolutely overrated. Dabo has not had a good roster since Sunshine was there. So, it is what it is. Let's see how Carson Beck plays with these guys once he gets into the teeth of the SEC schedule.
As Notre Dame just went up 20-13 with a minute 45 to go, and Texas A&M's got the ball on their own 25, facing 3rd and 10. So it looks like, barring a late drive, Notre Dame could actually go into College Station and come out with a very big win.
Jim, they can't do it 2 years in a row and let a team drive the length of the field on them with a minute and a half left, can they?
I think
because that's what Kyle McCord did last year.
Yeah, but I also think this is not a situation where, the coaching staff is going to, number one, play prevent defense, and number two, remember to put more than 10 guys on the field, if they get inside the 5-yard line like they did against Columbus last year.
Oh no, I agree with you 100%.
Which was probably outside of what happened with Miami and Georgia Tech was probably the stupidest play call of the entire season last year.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. I am under no false narratives that Ohio State got very lucky in that game. Can I say I'm rooting for Georgia Tech next week?
You can.
They say they play Syracuse.
I mean, just love to actually see them keep that momentum coming off that big win in Dublin.
Listen, I want to see Georgia Tech be a player in the ACC this year because the way they play, I mean, and their front is better than people give them credit for. That O-line was pushing around a very quality defensive line last week in what Florida State has. You and I were talking about it, and we talked about it with Alex a little bit too, that Florida State's defensive line was supposed to be one of the elite defensive lines in the league, and that O-line pushed them around. I have to watch the highlight video from Miami today against your boys. I got to see what their D-line looks like, but I'm going to say this right now. If Miami's D-line can't get pushed against Georgia Tech, they're going to have problems.
I mean, I agree. Let's go back to the bowl game with Florida State and Georgia last year after they both got left out of the playoff. Yeah,
you can't,
exactly. Though. Georgia decided to play everybody. Florida State, half the guys just got up and quit. And you actually, and you're starting to wonder, could we be seeing a little bit of a hangover? Is Georgia now coming in with a lot of that team coming back with a chip on their shoulder saying nobody's beaten us this year? The championship goes through Athens.
I think they are. The one thing that I think will hurt, there are two things I think that will hurt them. Number one, there's no more divisions in the SEC. They have a very tough schedule. Number two, the vibe I get coming out of Columbus is Will Howard was the missing piece. And I don't mean Will Howard himself. I mean a quarterback like a Will Howard. Nessler and Danielson made a good point today. The Bucs haven't had a guy to run the football under center since Justin Fields. Wasn't C.J. Stroud's game, although he did it really well against Georgia in that Peach Bowl. And Kyle McCord's slower than me. Well overweight and bad back, me. So he adds that wrinkle that we have seen, and as much of a hater as you are, you have to admit when Ohio State has that mobile quarterback who can run, it's a different animal. They play a different type of game, especially with those two stud running backs. I'd have to see how Georgia's defense lines up this year. They also lost a lot. Clemson was not a test. Anybody who thought this game was going to be a test for Georgia wasn't paying attention.
Let me ask this because you follow it a lot more than I do. We know you said that the divisions are gone in the SEC. Are they gone in some of the other super conferences as well?
They're gone in the Big Ten too.
Okay.
There's no East-West in the Big Ten.
So let me actually throw out a dog hunts or knucking futz. If Ohio State or Penn State do not make the Big Ten championship game this year, regardless of where they may fall in the playoff, or if they actually get into the playoff and they don't make at least the Final Four, are either Ryan Day or James Franklin getting terminated?
Knucking futz for one reason. I don't think the playoff means as much if Day walks out of Columbus on November 30th with a W. If he beats Sharon Moore, all sins are forgiven because he's 3-3. I'm sorry, he's 2-3 with Harbaugh. They forfeited a year. So if in all seriousness, he's 3-3.
Because you got to think right now with the way that their schedule lines up, you can probably, you're about 85, 90% almost guaranteed to put Dan Lanning and the Ducks in there. And it's all a matter of who else is going to fill that spot, I think.
And the thing is, Buckeyes play Penn State and they play Oregon. if Ohio State win, if
I
Ohio,
think, but they're on the road for both of those games. If they win both of those games, absolutely they deserve to be there because they've actually shown. But they have to go to Eugene and they have to go to Happy Valley,
that's right, because the only big game they have at home
Michigan.
Is Michigan. Let me say this: if they win in Happy Valley and in Eugene and run the table, I don't care what Georgia does. I think Ohio State ends up being the number 1 overall seed in the playoff.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be much of an argument there unless the FCC completely, with the new transition, they go out, let's say like Georgia blows the doors off of, Florida, blows the doors off of Texas, blows the doors off of Alabama, because I mean, those are 3 national title contenders right there. Penn State will be lucky to get into the playoff. And we think, I mean, we're both kind of predicting that, Oregon's going to they may not get a bye, but there's at the very worst, they're going to host a home game in that first round.
Yeah, so here's Georgia's schedule. Clemson, Tennessee Tech, at Kentucky, at Alabama, home for Auburn, home for Mississippi State, in Texas, at Texas, the November 2nd, the cocktail party, at Ole Miss, home for Tennessee, the biggest fucking joke in the world, home for UMass, and then end the year in good, clean old-fashioned hate.
I think that's a more dangerous schedule than Ohio State would be.
Far more dangerous.
Yeah.
The difference is Oregon has such national title. Let me say this. You know how I've always said ESPN, them broadcasting this thing has a big effect on the playoff? Do you know who 4 people picked at ESPN picked to win the national title? Oregon. If the Bucks go into Eugene and beat Oregon, and then they go into Happy Valley and win, which, by the way, will not be the whiteout because it's the big noon game, because ESPN does not have rights to Big Ten anymore. I don't see how they're not number 1 unless Georgia rolls some of these teams.
Yeah, because
I mean, just absolutely goes into Tuscaloosa and dominates, or goes into Texas and dominates.
I was going to say, because if you look at that, Tuscaloosa, Austin, and Ole Miss, there's 3 top 10 teams right there.
Yeah, agreed.
Who all have a chance to be playing in Atlanta later this winter.
How many of those teams are going to be there, though, when they get to that game?
I mean, naturally, with process of elimination, somebody in there is going to have a loss, maybe 2 in there, but they're still going to actually have enough of a resume where they could actually sneak their way back, into the back end as a 10 or 11.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
I could definitely see 5 getting in from the SEC with this thing, if things kind of hold serve. Just because I think they're just, with the way that their teams are set up, and the fact of the way that they play each other, I think this is one of those years where the Big Ten kind of slides back, because outside of Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, who else has really got a shot to be able to, to make a run at this thing?
I mean, the champs are there.
Michigan, yeah, the champs are there, but they're not the same team.
No.
I mean, they'll be a one and done type thing, or maybe they'll actually get in and they'll be a road team. I mean, they'll get a chance to defend their title, assuming the bottom doesn't fall out with, and I'm not even saying once, final judgment comes down on last year's scandal. But let's actually see where the chips fall. I don't see Wisconsin being there. I don't see, I don't see Iowa being there. It's Minnesota's not going to be there. Indiana's not going to be there. No, UCLA and USC are not going to be there.
I watch out for Iowa. Let's see how they do in the Cyhawk next week. They put up 40 points today. They didn't do that last year at all. and they
Yeah, but
dropped
that's
40
not
week one.
typically a Kirk Ferentz team. They're a very kind of gritty, and they know when they get ahead, they kind of take their foot off the gas a little bit. Ferentz is not really. They've always been a lot more defensive minded
Yes,
and smash mouth, where you're not going to put up 40. So it's not so much that they can't put up 40; it's that they won't put up 40.
that's very true. So I have a second name for you, sir.
Okay.
Yep, I'm going to go here. James, your second name in the YZ Translator is most likely former Cleveland Cavalier Isaac Okoro.
It's been the odd man out now for about 2 years. Either sign him or trade him. Do something, because it's getting old, and it's getting old real quick.
Agreed, 100%. As much as I love him for being that lockdown defender. It's time to fish or cut bait with him. Who you got for me to wrap it up there, sir?
Michael, I got one for you, and then maybe I want to throw you a wild card, throw you a bonus one for the hell of it. The one that I really want to give you tonight, we did not bring his name up in the last segment, and I'm kind of glad we didn't, because I want your fresh take on him. Potential AL MVP candidate, Bobby Witt Jr.
Fucking Aaron Judge. If not for fucking Aaron Judge, you would say AL MVP Bobby Witt Jr. He is the best shortstop in the game. I love my guy. He ain't Bobby Witt. You're talking a combination of speed, power, and good defense. You have the Kansas City Royals in it.
He's 11 points better than Judge for batting average right now. He's going to win himself a batting title at this rate, and Judge is still going to hang 60 home runs.
Yeah. Judge going to hang 60. Their pitching's going to fall apart, and Soto's going to sign with the Mets. I love Bobby Witt. I love Bobby Witt since he debuted
too.
He's going to have 200 hits. Jesus. That's crazy. He would be, if not for what Aaron Judge is doing, which is historic, he would be the MVP.
I mean, Judge is hitting 330 with 51 bombs and 100.
He's hitting almost 350.
What's that?
Bobby Witt's hitting almost 350.
Yeah, he's hit. Bobby Witt's hitting 341.
My God. And he can fly.
Yeah. Although had they not taken that nosedive for the last 2 years, remember through like early June when they started to swoon, and before he got hurt, remember Stephen Kwan was hitting 384.
That's right. So, James, as our evening comes to an end,
Michael, I got one more for you.
Oh, that's yes. Wild card for me. Wild card.
Football season is officially back.
Fuck.
It starts officially, like the big boys start next Thursday. And there's something else that happens on Tuesdays. And we've already gotten a little bit of a taste of it on social media. Your wild card name, she's back, Annie Yeager.
I need an Annie Agar Benchwarmer brand board meeting.
It's the collaboration that we never knew that we wanted and absolutely needed, and we will all basically sign up for a $15 a month Patreon if we have to, if that's what it meant we needed to get it.
I fully agree with you. She's great. I really do like her.
I think she's already put one out for this.
She did. She did. I haven't watched it, but I saw that it was out there. I follow her on every platform. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, no, I enjoy her. So I know we've been teasing doing the Kobayashi Joey Chestnut reaction video. I think we may turn that into a quick, probably 30 to 45 minute reaction video to what goes down in the, what do they say? It's something about a beef.
What did they call it? I just had it. It's literally on the tip of my tongue. Unfinished beef.
Yes. I got Nathan's hot dogs in my freezer. Speaking of unfinished beef,
I bought brats today.
Nice. Because of when it's going off, unfortunately, that's the middle of the day. I got them coming home. I don't know if we'll be able to do the live react. You figure they'll be in prime time, though.
I mean, that's the great thing is that we can actually, sync it up. I mean, we naturally won't be broadcasting it here because of, Fair and Information Act. I mean, we conceivably could do a blind react and put the video up like, the Twitch streamers and YouTube streamers that you and I have, grown to love in recent years. But we've got some options here with this. Are we going to actually do it live here? Are we going to pre-record something? If we do, how are we going to do it? It's we've got some options here. We got some leeway, but tentatively we're going to be with you guys on Monday. But the other thing is that, it could also be something that we already know the outcome, and we could do it any other night during the week if we wanted to for 20 minutes.
Yeah, or we could make it a segment on next Saturday's show. We have a lot of options with this. It's fucking high noon. Do it at high noon. Get them chomping down at high noon like they do for the friggin' hot dog eating contest on 4th of July. Come on.
This way we can actually scarf some of our hot dogs and have the whole rest of the afternoon to digest before we have to go back to work the next morning.
It's like you read my mind. Especially me, because I got to do an interview Monday morning or Tuesday morning. I'm interviewing, that is. So you will hear from us on the hot dog eating contest. We are not sure of the time or if it will even be on Monday, but it will take up a good chunk of time on the next time the Wise Guys are on the air, because we're just stupid like that.
But episode 82 will be coming to you next Saturday. We will have the official kickoff of the NFL. We will have week 2, and we've got some heavy hitters in college football that we're going to be covering. But the primary focus of next week's episode is going to be the opening week of the NFL season.
Yep. And then, believe it or not, it's got a dual purpose, because it's also one of the most fun months of the year, as we are literally next week, 4 weeks away from the end of the baseball season and the start of the greatest month on the calendar. Green Day didn't write the song telling them when to wake to be woken up for no reason.
Because in September, once we come to you in September, we've got the start of the NFL season. We've got we're going to be entering conference play next month in college football. We've got NHL training camps opening. We've got the close of the PGA season leading into the Ryder Cup. We've got the Paralympics in Paris going on right now. Those will be closed up, in the next week and a half here. We've got the stretch drive in baseball and basketball. We're going to be just a couple of weeks away from training camp there for when they open up in October. I want to say they're going to start early November this year.
I think it's late October, early November, yeah. So we've got a lot coming to you with the Wise Guys in the next few weeks. And that March to 100 is in full swing. So, James, have a good rest of your Labor Day weekend.
You as well, Michael. We will definitely be in contact sometime tomorrow and certainly on Monday in some capacity.
Yes, sir. So we will get out on our socials if we're going to do the thing on Monday, or if you're going to see it be a segment on the show on Friday night or Saturday night, excuse me.
And at least this way, having the extra day off, I can get the translator cut a lot faster this week. So I can definitely get that up sometime tomorrow or at the worst case on Monday, because now YouTube has kind of done something to where, and I'm not going to argue with it, but it's like I can't download to be able to clip the video for 12 hours after the show ends for formatting.
We should probably start doing them a little earlier so we can, you get the translator done before the mid following day.
It's not a big deal. As long as I get it up by the middle of the week, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, we will see you guys we will definitely see you Saturday, but possibly earlier in the week. Jim, I will talk to you tomorrow. Everybody have a great rest of your Saturday. Today's Saturday, right?
For another 32 minutes, yes.
Have a great rest of your Saturday night. Happy Labor Day. Enjoy Monday, and we will talk to you guys at minimum next Saturday.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.